Welcome to the Life by Design podcast, where Jesselyn and Brian Pearson, struggling to align your financial goals or confidently invest in real estate as a couple?
That's why we created this podcast and the Riches, Relationships, and Real Estate program to help you build wealth and strengthen your relationship. Visit weekendwealth.ca to take our quiz and discover your real estate investor type. Let's create the life you deserve together.
In today's episode, we're flipping the script on a popular belief, the notion that paying off your mortgage is inherently better. And we're going to talk about two actual investments in our life that illustrate the difference. This episode was inspired by a notion that we keep seeing over and over again with our clients and friends, the idea of having no mortgage. Most of us were raised with the belief that you should pay off your mortgage as fast as possible. Well, we've learned differently, and the two scenarios that we're going to detail will show the difference, which will allow you to make a more informed decision on your mortgage. So the first one we want to talk about is your personal residential mortgage.
Mm-hmm. And not just everybody else out there, but us as well. We were told by our parents that paying off your mortgage is kind of your number one priority in your financial life. But we're going to show a little bit about why that's not entirely true. And we did go down that path when we first started with our property. We tried very, very hard to pay it off until we discovered a different way.
Yeah, we were, and I think we've shared this on multiple podcasts, we were, I think, 2 months shy of being mortgage-free before we actually decided to, instead of pay it off, we refinanced, pulled it out, and bought properties.
Yes, yeah. So we want to work through some actual numbers in this podcast. So just so you can really see the financial difference that it creates by using the finances and the leverage that you have available for you in your personal residence versus actually just paying that off and then not using that leverage for any type of investment. So as we just mentioned, we were very, very close to paying off our personal mortgage. And our mortgage had started at about $350K, but when we refinanced it, we were able to buy up to $2 million worth of property. So we now had $2 million worth of mortgages instead on those investment properties. But the portfolio is now cash flowing at $2,800 a month, which was is now almost double our original mortgage payment. So we're actually paying our original mortgage and we are cash flowing and putting money in our pocket because we actually borrowed from our personal residence.
Right. And I mean, it gives us cash flow as well as we have, the interest that we have against our residential property because we borrowed against it is a write-off. Right. So it's not like our expenses necessarily went up because we have a bigger mortgage because those costs are being covered by our tenants.
Yeah. The costs are being covered by our tenants. Yeah. And then the added benefit is that 7 years down the road after we refinanced our property. So this is 7 years down the road today. And now we are able to buy apartment buildings from the original portfolio that we bought when we refinanced our personal residence. And now that $2 million in property has turned into $4.5 million in property. So the contrast there is that now today we could have had $500,000 and specifically $570,000 in equity, or we could have refinanced as we did 7 years ago and have $4.5 million in value of our properties. Plus, the portfolio is now cash flowing with the apartment buildings at $6,000 a month. So if we had not paid off if we had paid off our personal residence, we would have been saving about $1,000 a month, as in not spending it. Instead, now we are earning $6,000 a month with the exact same amount of equity.
Yeah, that's a whole mind shift, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to think like, everyone, I know their safety net is, I'm going to be mortgage free. So, if something happens to my job or my husband's job or the family income, I don't have a mortgage. I can still live in my home.
Yep.
But if you flip that switch and went the route we went, it's like, oh, if I don't have a job or don't have family income, I'm still making $6,000 a month off my investment properties to help pay down my mortgage, but also supplement other bills that still come whether you have a job or not.
Yeah, and not only that, but the our real estate portfolio has some leverage still in it.
Yep.
So if we had a really disastrous situation where we still had like the $6,000 a month wasn't enough to lean on, we have some stuff to lean on, like some credit to lean on inside of our real estate portfolio. So not only do we are we not just saving $1,000 a month that if we had paid off our personal residence, but we have that 6,000 plus we have the ability to leverage if there is a disaster in our life of some sort.
Yeah, and the good news is this is a rinse and repeat story. So, like, as we grow these portfolios, we can refinance as the price goes up, pull that money out and buy more apartment buildings and just keep building our cash flow. And to a point where, I mean, working outside of course, our real estate portfolio would be optional.
Yeah, and the first round took us 7 years, but the planned second round for refinancing and buying like upping our game again is about 5 years. I think it's going to happen in less, probably about four. But then the next round after that will be 2 years, and all of a sudden you're on this hockey stick of a climb, and your $1,000 in saving is now turning into just this huge multiplier on your income.
Yeah.
Mm.
And upping our game isn't just adding another apartment, it's continuing to double our portfolio. So, as you mentioned, we went from two, we're now at 4.5. And then I know you say 4 years, but I think it's going to be more like two to double this to nine. But in 4 years, we'll get to our goal, which was closer to 20
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
million.
And yeah, and then far out into the future, like after that 4 years, that at that point your real estate portfolio has enough that you can leverage from to actually pay yourself an income. So you end up not only using your real estate portfolio to pay you, but you're actually borrowing from your real estate portfolio to live. And guess what? That's tax free. So you're saving money on the tax and instead of having to pay tax on the cash flow of your real estate. The win-wins just start to stack into the future.
Right, right. Okay, so what does this look like? So if we want to share with our audience, comparing you got your investment property, a mortgage versus a mortgage free,
Mhm.
let's talk about what that looks like from cost, like what's it going to take from an investment perspective, uh, ROI, so return on my investment, and where the gaps are that someone who's looking at being mortgage free, because that's how they're raised, where are the gaps they're missing in this whole concept?
In terms of the personal residence, or are we talking about investment resident?
We're talking the investment property now here. So you're going to compare a mortgage versus a mortgage free option.
Yeah. So this contrast comes from the idea of a lot of what our clients are thinking, and they want to get into real estate. And specifically, these clients are a little bit further down the road. They're relatively successful financially, and they're looking at getting into real estate. But in their head, they still have that mortgage free sort of notion that they grew up with. So they look at these real estate properties and they want to pay them off instantly because they are far enough ahead that they actually have the money to pay off these properties. And I kept getting this question over and over again. And inherently, like instinctively, I knew that like paying off your mortgage was not the best return on of your investment. But I got it asked one too many times. And a couple months ago, I said, you know what? That's it. I gotta draw this out and actually like show why these numbers actually matter and why it is not the best investment to pay off your real estate investment property entirely.
Right.
Yeah. So, uh, some things that people forget about are things like the mortgage paydown and the CRA in Canada, the Canadian Revenue Agency, i.e., the tax man. These things start to add up when it comes to chipping away at your ROI. So what I did is I created a comparison of our own, like one of our own properties. So this is one half is the real world example of what we actually did, and then the other half of the example is the fictional scenario if we had paid off that mortgage entirely. So the property was 449,000 to buy, and if we had mortgaged it, which we did, that was $999,000 to close the deal. So that's down payment, lawyers, inspection, everything.
Okay, and so just to clarify, that's
Hmm?
20% down, correct?
20% down,
Okay.
correct? Yeah. And so on the non-mortgage side, your cash to close is $458,000.
And that is because the purchase price was 449.
49, yep.
So you're paying the whole price up front, but then also closing costs, like you said, inspection, lawyers, and all that.
Yeah, yeah. Effectively 100% down plus the exact same closing costs as if you had mortgaged it. Yeah. So already your total investment is almost 4 times higher than if you had had a mortgage property. Now let's look at cash flow. So for this particular property, our cash flow is $758 a month, and that generates a return on investment of 9.1%. And if you had no mortgage, the cash flow is $2,418 a month, or a return of investment of 6.4%. Now you might want to ask, why is the number so much higher on the cash flow side where you have no mortgage? And yet the return on investment is so much lower. And that's basically just because you've put so much more money into the deal that the amount of return that you're getting from that money is actually lower, even though the volume of that money is higher. And I think that's one of the big misconceptions of why you should not pay off your mortgage, is because people look at that volume number. They say, oh, look at that, like $2,400 a month in cash flow. That's way better than $700 a month in cash flow. But the reality is that you have to use so much more money in order to get that cash flow that your actual return on investment is actually quite a bit lower than it.
Right. So not only am I putting like 450,000 down, which if I went with this 99,000 down for the mortgage, I could technically buy 4 of these properties.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. Yeah.
But if I'm making a cash flow of 2,400 a month, for example, versus the 758, the tax man's taking a nice little chunk of that too.
That's the other thing. Yeah. Is that that $2,400 a month that you're cash flowing is taxable. So
I mean, it's taxable either way, but this
taxable
is
either
a
way.
much higher bracket now.
Yeah. You're getting taxed more yeah, you're in a higher bracket and a higher volume of money that you're getting taxed on.
Okay.
Yeah. So the second thing that we need to look at for this particular example is the mortgage paydown. So on your mortgage property, you earn another $8,700 a year on paying down your mortgage for an additional return of your investment of 8.8%. And then on the flip side, there is no mortgage paydown because you paid it off. So your return on investment for your mortgage paydown is zero.
Right.
Nothing to add there. And then the last thing is appreciation. So we'll assume that the property appreciates exactly the same of 2%, which is 9% or $9,000 per year, or an ROI of 9%. So
9% on the mortgage
9%
side.
on the mortgage side, yeah. But because again, you put so much more onto the non-mortgage side, your actual ROI for appreciation is only about 2%, quite a bit lower.
Yeah.
So when you total up all those numbers, your mortgaged ROI, your return on investment, is almost 27%. On the non-mortgage side, your return on investment is a little over 8%. So by mortgaging your investment property, you're actually generating a return almost 3 times as high as your non-mortgaged property. And you mentioned it earlier, you can buy 4 of the mortgage properties for the same exact cash as the non-mortgage property. So technically, you got to multiply that 27 by 4, and you're actually over 100% ROI for the same cash as if you had paid off your entire mortgage and only generated 8% ROI.
Yeah, and for our mathematical listeners here, As we mentioned, the non-mortgage, you'd make just over $2,400 a month. On the mortgage, you'd make 758. But if you had four of those, you're now making 3,000. So you are making more cash flow on four properties with the same money down than one property completely paid off.
True. Yeah. Yeah. One of our mentors, Don Campbell from the Real Estate Investment Network, the way he always put it is that it's much better to buy 100% of something for 1/5 of the cost, i.e., 20% down, than it is to buy 100% of something for 100% of the cost. And that's exactly what you're doing when you're mortgaging your property. You're buying the entire property for a fifth of the price.
Yeah, and you're growing a much larger portfolio, making a bigger return, and it just keeps multiplying.
Yeah,
How the wealthy get wealthier.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. You're multiplying every number you can add into the equation there.
Okay, so let's go back to the original concept of you should pay off your mortgage first. That's what I can hear the voices from our parents. And I'm sure many of our listeners also have heard that, and it's whispering in their ears. Um, so now that we've explained how you can make money by not paying off your mortgage and different ways to go about that, there's some questions to consider around that. There are things to think about. And one of them, I think, is debt, because so many people are just terrified
Highly
of
adverse.
just
Yeah.
and adverse to it. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Uh, well, it's not for everybody. Debt's not for everybody. You really got to look at your personality and understand how you can handle debt. Uh, on a functional level for your finances, the right debt is really good debt. You just need to make sure that you are properly getting into the right debt. So, you, a debt like against a property where it pays you more than what you need to pay into it, that is a good debt. And that's what we do. We, as real estate investors, we want lots and lots of debt, but we want the debt that we have to pay more than it's actually costing us.
So, this debt equates to what we'd call a business,
Yes.
right? It is making us money, it is making us cash flow, it is not sinking us further, like, let's say, credit card debt. That is what we would deem a bad debt.
Exactly. Yeah. And,
Right.
and I want to illustrate one other thing about debt, is that debt has no inflationary aspect to it. So $100,000 of debt today is still $100,000 of debt 10 years from now. So you have all the inflation that happens, especially over the last 5 years, that doesn't count towards your debt, whereas everything else is increasing. So whatever you buy a real estate investment property for today and whatever that debt level is, it's basically stuck in time at that point that you bought it. And that's a great thing because now your property and your asset is paying you more and more throughout the years. And yet the amount you paid for it, the debt that you have on that is staying the exact same. And ideally you're paying it down. So it's actually lowering into the future. But never ever will it inflate unless you choose to inflate it by what we do, refinancing it and going and buying new property.
Interesting. So, something else to maybe consider is, as a listener who wants to invest in real estate, we want to talk about your awareness of macroeconomic trends. And we're talking things like interest rates, which of course you're going to have an interest rate on your mortgage, on your debt if you borrowed to invest outside of your mortgage. Um, and then rental demand. Like, are you investing in a space where there is rental demand? Because if you're not making the money, then that debt gets bigger and it causes the stress and the anxiety.
Yeah, and the thought here is that if you're not going to pay attention to these factors, doing real estate yourself is probably not for you. Find a partner.
Yeah.
Find a partner who's going to invest into real estate with you so that they can pay attention to those things and they can have the expertise around what is going on in the real estate portfolio.
Yeah. So for macroeconomic trends, sure, but also experience. Like, so
Mhm.
do you have the experience? If not, do you have the time to learn? And do you have the time to create a I'm going to repeat that, performing
Yeah.
rental portfolio? And again, this is where we lean on, if you don't, work with a partner. Even work with a partner for the first one or two so you can learn hands-on knowledge. But if you're going to pick a partner, please pick a partner who can actually show and prove that they're rental portfolio is performing because, I know a lot of people when they find out I'm a real estate investor, you can see they just kind of get the shivers. They're like, ugh, like
Heh.
you have to deal with renters, and then they talk about experiences they've had because they put their in-laws or someone in the suite and they don't want to up the rent, so it's costing them money, and it's like, but you're not treating it like a business then.
Yeah. Yeah, or they're not even into it, and they find out we're a real estate investor, and they bring their ideal deal to us, and it's just a really bad deal.
It's a bad deal, and they think it's an incredible deal, and so I really appreciate and have respect for, people who will bring those forward to us,
Yeah.
and, 'cause I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, I don't wanna bother you or bug you." I'm like, "No, please do, because this can cost you money, and we want to help save people money and invest and create money." And I know we spoke to one of our friends who found an incredible property according to her, and
It was a really nice property.
we ran the
And
numbers
that
for her and showed her, and when I spoke with her probably about a month later, she's like, "Yeah, I'm really glad I brought it to you." She's like, and then she started talking about all the things of why she wanted to buy it, and I looked at her and I'm like, and I just started kind of, refuting them. I'm like, she goes, "It was a really nice property." She goes, "But I was worried that I wouldn't be able to resell it." And I'm like, "Yeah, but did you think that you're not selling it to a normal homeowner? This was an investment property." She goes, "Oh." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, you don't buy a suited property for a traditional homeowner. You buy it for investors." She goes, "Oh." I'm like, "So you would have been able to resell it, you know?" And she looked at it, she goes, "And I thought the backyard wasn't big enough." I'm like, "Yeah, but is it for you or is it for your renter?"
Yeah, you gotta
And
think
she's
like the
like,
renter.
"Bro," right? And so if you're going to buy an investment property and you're looking at it like, would I live here in respect to like, oh, I need it for my animals, I need to know resale value, so you do need to think about rentability and sellability, but from an investor's mindset, not from a homeowner's mindset.
Exactly, and that's why you need some experience. So if you don't have the experience, go find somebody who does have the experience, because they will point out ways of having that portfolio or that rental property perform in ways that you never thought of.
Yeah, I know we talk a lot of numbers here, and sometimes numbers make people's brains hurt. But we would love to review. If you've got properties, please send them our way. Uh, info@weekendwealth.ca, and we'll take a look for you and we'll give you our honest opinion on whether it's a good deal or not. So the key takeaway for me today would be okay with thinking outside the norm of what how you're raised or how people even every day today, colleagues, coworkers, friends, family might try to tell you, and be okay with thinking outside that and going forward with what works for you.
My key takeaway is very, very similar, and that is challenge your traditional thoughts just one at a time, and make sure that you can think out these thoughts, because for us, it wasn't smarts and hard work that got us to where we are today. It was thinking different.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Listen for more real estate investing stories in the next episode of the Life by Design podcast.
Before you go, don't forget to visit weekendwealth.ca to take our quiz and discover what type of real estate investor you are. We release new episodes every 2 weeks, so be sure to hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast app. Thank you for joining us on this journey to create your life by design.
Thanks again for listening. It's been a pleasure being with you today.